Hola! Thank you for tuning in into Empowermente podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode. As always, I've been doing so many guest podcasts that I haven't done one by myself in a while. Just FYI, it'll be just two more episodes and then I'll have an episode for myself. But I'm so excited for today's episode. I have an unlikely relationship with this person, but it turned out to be such a beautiful relationship. Just to give you a glimpse, she is my stepsister, and I never imagined that I would have this relationship with her. Her name is Magali Lopez, and she is cultivating a savage life. And she's doing it with purpose, power, and a whole heart. She's a proud first gen Latina and the first in her family to earn a college degree. So she holds a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from UTEP and a master's in interdisciplinary engineering from Purdue. And she also holds an engineering management certification from Kelley School of Business. So she is a powerhouse. She's been working over 10 years in the aerospace industry, and she has worked with giants such as Boeing, General Motors, and now Rolls-Royce. Her journey doesn't really stop at engineering. She's also an entrepreneur, and she's very experienced with real estate. She has over 6 years of success in both multifamily and single family homes. She's a wife, a mom, and a daughter of God, and a wellness enthusiast currently living in Hawaii. So if you've been following me for a while, you remember seeing when I posted that I was in Hawaii with her. She's building a life rooted in family, faith, freedom, and fearless ambition. When she's not solving engineering challenges or closing real estate deals, you'll probably find her doing a Sudoku, enjoying an avocado because that's her favorite, or soaking up the island breeze. Imagínate vivir en Hawaii. Get ready to be inspired by Magali Savage, a woman who's boldly creating a savage life and showing others what's possible when you lead with intention. I really hope that you love this episode. Let us know what you think and what you took away from it. Muchos saludos! Welcome to Empowermente, the headquarters of personal empowerment. Hello, Magali. So happy to have you at Empowermente. This has been in the books for a long time. It has been planned for years, and we're finally making it happen. I'm so excited that you're here and for you to share yourself and your knowledge y todo lo que tienes que ofrecer with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's definitely been years. I remember having a conversation about this in Hawaii, um, and how we were saying like we need a podcast, and then you were like, Gina, you should have a podcast, and then you did it. So here we are. So yeah, I'm excited to share also a little bit of about about me and just see where this conversation goes.
See, you're phenomenal. I'm excited to have this conversation. So, for the people who are lurkers and for the people who are curious, okay, let's not say lurkers. Let's say the people who are curious. So, let's share a little bit about our story, porque siento que es diferente y es especial. I feel like you don't come across it every day. So we're stepsisters, technically. Yeah.
And
So
she's
I
about
want
to get good.
so I want to share how we met. So yeah, so I want to share that.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's right.
sí, sí, so como basically Magali and I didn't really have interaction or relationship for as long as our parents were together. O como que we just didn't have that, and then we suddenly did in 2021, I believe, is when we started
Hmm.
talking. So she's, I mean, I read her bio. She has moved around, and when she went back to El Paso and I was there at the same time, we had a little date and we went to her pool in her apartment and we started talking, and then we realized that we had so many things in common and that we could be friends and we could have a relationship. So yeah, like it was crazy because it had been like probably 10 years that we didn't have that relationship, and then we did.
Yeah, I think like we knew about each other, but we just also never really. I think also it took us that long because we didn't have the opportunity to just interact. You were doing school when I had already graduated, and then like I moved out of El Paso, and we were just never in the same city until like that short time from when I went back. But I'm glad we were able to connect though.
See, 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 see. It was meant to happen. And yeah, I am curious to know, it's 2025, so let's go back to 2021 when we had that first interaction. Is there anything that surprised you that we had in common when we reconnected? Because I know I was pretty surprised.
So the thing is, like, I knew about you, right? And then I knew that we had a similar background. We were both technical in engineering, same hometown, first gen Latina, undergrad from same university. So we already had all of that in common. But what really surprised me is how we used our background to become who we were as a woman, right? And like our ambitions and what we're trying to do were also similar. And to the point where sometimes, and I think like if people have been around us, we will say the same words without even thinking. It's gonna seem some corny, como dicen, like finishing each other's sentences sort of thing. But like I will be thinking something, and then you will say, and we say it at the same time, or even something. I remember when we were in Seattle and we went out, and then we were dancing, and like we literally did the same move at the same exact time. At the point in the song, and we were just like, "Wait, what? This isn't, choreographed." So for me, it was really interesting to see how like our brains worked and how we were just linked or aligned in a lot of things, and it could be, and it was in different areas. It wasn't just like dancing, it wasn't just like engineering, it was just in multiple areas in our lives. I think we were so aligned, and I think that even though it took us what, like 10 years, right? I think it was 10 years before we
Took us a
actually
little.
truly connected. um we were able to connect and like have a stronger bond in a really short amount of time because of that, because it was just like click 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 click. And yeah, so I thought that's something that really really surprised me.
See, thank you for sharing that. I wanted to like pretty much set the foundation as to like who you are, how we got connected, and yeah, just like so many things we had in common. I think that was the most surprising thing for me. O sea, como que first gen Latina from El Paso who went to the same university and loved to travel, doing engineering in their career, did the same type of internships, como que same type of industry, love to dance, same type of aspirations, do real estate. Como que it just never ended, loved outreach, como que all these things. And I was like, who's this person? So yeah, so I'm happy that we were able to connect. And you have done so many amazing things. O sea, como que we talk about our background and the way that we grew up, maybe growing up low income with less resources and from a smaller city, like a border town. It is incredible to think the things that you've done, Magali. So I want to talk about some of that, and one of the things that I'm interested in talking about is real estate, because real estate is something that it is a medium for generational wealth, and it
Mhm.
is something that a lot of our community doesn't have access to. They don't know where to start. It's very intimidating, it's like, oh my god, what is that, like, how do we even start, like, me having that liability, it's a lot. So I want to talk to you and demystify some of the things that come with real estate. So yeah, super excited for the conversation. Yeah. My first question for you is, what made you first believe real estate was possible for you? Maybe you can share a little bit about your background, and then, what was the first thing that you were like, oh, this is a thing that you can do?
So I really started looking into real estate. It was kind of like, I don't want to say by accident, but it was one of those things that I started to evaluate everything I've done in my life, right? First person in my family to get a degree, became an engineer, I got my master's, and I was, checking a bunch of things in my checklist and my personal. By this time, I'm gonna have this, right? And one of the things that I didn't have, and I remember, I think I was turning 25, or I was about to, oh, I don't know, it was like before I turned 25. I started thinking like, I thought, the young me, it was like, by this time I'll be married, have my kids and the house and the things, because, our parents and our previous generations, they did have a lot of that, by that age, and that was really, really common. And then when I started to evaluate everybody, I was like, I'm not even remotely close to doing none of that. But the one thing that I could control was the house portion. And I didn't grow up in a house, right? Like I grew up in a traila, in a mobile home, like all my life. So I didn't even really understood, what owning a house meant. I just knew that that's something that we were to look forward to, and that's the reason why we were always told go to college, get a good career, so you could get a good job, and then you could have, your house. But it really started. I started paying attention with people that was doing real estate, and I noticed that there were people my age, younger than me, older than me, worst experiences, and they were doing it. So it was kind of like, well, if they could do it, why can't I? So what's really stopping me? And so then I started doing my research about it. And then, I mean, I had a good job, I had the income. So there was, from that standpoint, I just kind of realized that what was truly stopping me was I still had the mentality that you don't get a home until you're married. Like you get it with your husband, like the man. And when that shocked me, exactly when that shocked me, and I was like, hold up, nobody has ever, like nobody's paying my bills. I've done my own thing since I was like young. I had my own apartments, my own car. Like, so I'm like, why did I have that in my mind? I just realized that was kind of ingrained. I was waiting to, find my husband to be able to attain this. And I'm like, no, I could do it. So I started doing a little bit more research, and then so that's when I realized it just hit me like I could do this. Like this is something that I could definitely check off my list. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it.
Amiga, be so for real with me right now. I know that you've been sitting on a purpose project, a business idea, or even just a story that you know could change lives, but you keep waiting for the perfect time to start. Let me tell you something. The clarity you're seeking doesn't come from all the overthinking you're doing. It comes from taking the first step. And I know how frustrating it feels that you have so many ideas and love to give to the world, but still doubt yourself and second guess everything, or even worry about what other people are going to say. And that's what keeps so many Latinas stuck, waiting instead of creating. And that's why I created a free live workshop. Stop overthinking and start creating. Turn your stories and ideas into income and impact. It's going to be a 90-minute webinar where I'm going to walk you through my 3-part framework to help you do that mindset shift. And it's meant for first-generation Latinas to finally move that idea to action. So if you're ready to stop waiting and start building the life and projects you've been dreaming about, sign up now. Spots are free, but they're limited. So go ahead and sign up. The link is in my show notes, and I cannot wait to see you there. It's going to be October 7th, 5 to 6:30 PST, and it's going to be online. So I cannot wait to see you. It's a Tuesday. Do it. Magali, you left me in shock. Like, that is so powerful because I didn't even remember that. That is true. That is true because we talked about this and it's the same thing that I thought. I was kind of waiting, like, oh, should I wait for to find the right person to buy a house and to like waiting for permission and
Yeah.
setting back such important milestones because you don't have a man to do them with, right? And it's like, almost frowned upon to do it on your own, I mean, it was so ingrained in the culture, and for you to say, like, you know what, I can actually do it. And I think also having access to a career, and having a college degree and having access to the type of people that were doing this normally, it's like, oh yeah, like, I have real estate, and having access to that is a huge thing because now the youngins who have access to the internet, sometimes, there's dilemmas of, oh, should people go to college? Is that something worthwhile? Yes, it is, especially for generations like ours. If you're first gen, it just gives you access to completely different
Yeah.
things. So really amazing to hear that you were like, you know what, I can I can do this. So to walk us through some of the things that were part of your process, maybe some of the myths that you thought about, about buying a home and doing real estate before, and then, what did you realize along the way?
Okay, well, we briefly talked about like, yeah, you don't need a man to to do that. But
Yeah,
financially,
number
I
one.
think number one.
You don't need a man for that. Yeah, men are amazing. We just don't need them for certain
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah. But financially, I think because like I said, I didn't grow up in a home, right? It just kind of it seemed just like you need a lot of money, you know. And I think there's still that idea embedded in a lot of people that just haven't done the research, or they just don't understand how the system works, right? And by the system, I'm talking about your credit score, the lenders, you know, just the real estate agents, and um, that was one of the things. Like people think that they need like 20% down of a home, and if you look at the current market right now, that's quite significant, right? I mean, back then it was a little bit less, but still 20% down on like a $300,000 home or $400,000 home. um it's still significant. And even like the average American doesn't even have that in their savings, you know what I mean? So when I realized like you don't really need like that money out of your that much money out of pocket, because there's so many programs out there now. There's a bunch of different type of loans, especially when you're a first time homeowner, that exist, in which you could get a house with 5% down, or sometimes I think it's like the lowest was 3.5%. And that's for a home that you're going to live in there, right? So it has to be, it can't be like an investment home, because then there's different regulations, different, you know, rules that apply to that. But when I realized that, I was like, okay, hold up, but I got the money. Like I've been saving, you know, like I've been doing this. Um, but in reality, I at that time I was, you know, living in Indiana, so I didn't have, you know, my family close by. Like I didn't have, because the first person I would probably go to will be like my dad, for example, right? To say, hey, go check this house. But I didn't have that, so I didn't feel comfortable to buy a home in a place that I didn't have what I thought I the support, you know. And on top of that, I wasn't too sure how long I wanted to stay there. So back then, I thought that didn't make sense to buy something like a home. I thought it was like a lot of responsibility, and I also had the idea like if you buy a home somewhere, you're stuck there. You know, and I was like, I do not want to get stuck here. So that's why I decided to then go ahead and purchase my properties where within the area that I knew, which was El Paso. I did have, so in my head, I did have support. I was familiar with the market there. Um, and that's when I decided to go ahead and do that and start off with rentals.
Wow. Yes. There's so many things that we think are gonna be a certain way and they stop us, and then we do some more research, talk to people, and we're like, oh, that is really not how I thought it was at all. And I think that's a common experience for first gen. But you touch on so many good things there, because I think the geographical piece is really something that holds people back, especially people who are in states like California or Washington, where
Yeah.
real estate is off the roof, you know, and it's just sometimes just harder and not as realistic. You can also think about locations in other places, right? And so I'm interested in hearing that experience for you. So a few things to set the ground. How many years have you been doing this? And when you started doing it in a separate location, right? You were in Indiana and then you were managing in El Paso.
Yeah, so actually, I bought all my properties without seeing them in person out of state. So I was in Indiana and they were in Texas. So, you know, I would just see pictures, the videos, talk to the agent. And that's one thing that I learned also is kind of, you know, start developing your team, right? So I still work to this day with the same agents that helped me um,
Mm.
back then. So, yeah, when I realized that the geographic is not really, you know, a it would only be a something that could block you if you let it, you know. But it goes back to just that mentality of, you know, it has to be where you're currently living in, right? But I'm like, no, an investment is an investment. If the numbers make sense, they're gonna make sense, you know, wherever it is. um so I did purchase all my properties, and I started, I think my first property I want to say was in 2019. I believe it was 2019. And then I did it. It was really scary. I'm not gonna lie. The first time you do it, and then they give you like this whole thing, boom, where you have to sign all this paperwork. And it's like, I feel like I'm signing my life away. It was really scary. But after I did my first transaction, I was like, wow, I did this. And then I started looking and I got another one. And then I got another one. So like, I started like buying like a little shopping spree on properties. Needless to say, not everyone could do this. I am aware, right? But also because of the market. The market back then is definitely way different to what it is right now, right? Properties were cheaper, interest rates were great. And then also financially, you want to make sure that you're able to um, have enough reserves for things go wrong and all that stuff. And I mean, I definitely made a lot of mistakes at the beginning. Um, Thankfully, there weren't mistakes that completely ruined me, and I was able to get back up from them. But yeah, just being able to take that first step. I think when you take action on something, um, and then you realize that you could do this, then you just build up that confidence, and you're able to do it again and do it again. It's como people will say, apology for my Spanglish, or people will say, el lunes comienzo la dieta, you know what I mean? And it's like, and then Monday comes and you don't do it, but if you never actually take action, then you're just never really gonna get to your goal. And I've met a lot of people that knew so much and have way more knowledge than me about real estate, but they own zero properties. So I was just
Yeah.
like, interesting. The paralysis analysis sort of thing, right? So that's like, okay, no, you just got to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all of that. And first of all, a quick disclaimer to anybody listening, this is not legal advice, okay? This is entertainment and educational purposes only. Now, with that being said, you've been doing this for 6 years, so, you've been gaining experience. Um and two things. One that I see, one is like a huge advantage to having a high paying W-2. Like you have a full time job that can back you as you think about, doing real estate investments. So, which is super cool because as an entrepreneur, it's a little bit harder to gain that credibility and credit if you don't have consistent revenue. So, yeah, so I just want to say, if you're in your job and having a hard time, just think about that backing. One of the positive things of having it is like you can do many things really easily because of it. So I just want to highlight that. And then, I think the market right now is very hard and very different than it was when you first started. So for somebody who maybe dreamt of doing real estate and right now is discouraged, what would you say to them? Like, do you think it's even a good time now? Should they wait? I mean, again, this is not legal advice and we're not real estate agents. It's just our personal opinion, right? But it's like, what do you see for that? Like, yeah, I'm curious about that and like the bigger vision of why you started in the first place.
So I would say, like thinking back, once I realized what I realized, I like kind of slapped myself like, why didn't I start with this before? So it goes back like now, if you're thinking about if this is something that you truly want to do and you want to buy real estate and you want to get into this world and do a real estate investment, or you want to buy your home, um, the more you think about it, and if you're not, the more you're gonna find reasons as to why not to do it. Because it is scary if you've never done it, and it's also super scary if you don't really know people around you that have done it before. Especially if you're like the first one in your family, that's actually gonna take this leap. But like you mentioned, when you have a W-2 job, it does make the process easier when it comes to applying for loans. Um, but at this market, yes, interest rates are horrible. I would admit that. But that means that you could negotiate the cost, the actual, what the asking price of the house right now, which is great because for people that have been, in the real estate world, you start to notice this trend that a bunch of houses are just sitting in the market for a long time. Because what happened when the interest rates were super low, everyone were buying, and then so everyone put their houses for sale. They were asking ridiculous amount of money, and they thought that they could continue doing that, but there's only so many buyers, right? There's only so many investors that went ahead and snatched up a bunch of the properties, and now that you got left over with people that got into the game without really understanding the long term effects and have like different exit strategies, and then they get stuck with properties that they don't really want it, right? They were the flippers that were just trying to try it out, the people that try to do like Airbnb games, or people that bought a house and realize, you know what, it's actually a lot of maintenance, and maybe owning a home right now doesn't make sense for me, and they're trying to sell it. So there's still property sitting out there that have been sitting in the market for a long time. So I personally, that those are the ones that I'm currently looking at right now. I consider that, okay, if it's been sitting in the market for longer, the seller is probably more flexible when it comes to the asking price. So whatever you end up paying at front is what really you want to think about, because interest rates change all the time. You could always refinance, right? So the way I see things is like, if you're able to afford a house right now at this current interest rate, um, you could always go out refinance, and then your mortgage payment is going to be lower, and you're not going to feel that financially, you're not going to feel so strange with this mortgage payment because it's so high. um, but you do need to understand the numbers, and I think that's super super important. um, I think the same rules applies um, before and now when it comes to your debt to income ratio. You don't want all your paycheck to just go to your house, um, because there's a lot of maintenance costs that you don't know about. um, and like I learned, like I said, I never owned a home, right? So, and I know, Gina, you've experienced it as well too, like things that you just never thought about, and you're like, this, now
Yeah.
that, and the fixture and the doorknob and the window and the thing and like the AC. And so yeah, so it only because you could, in numbers, in paper, and even if the lender is saying, yeah, you qualify for this much, that doesn't necessarily mean that you go buy a $500,000 home, right? Because you have to think about the long run, and then you also have to think about like all the other costs that comes with it. If it's your home that you're gonna live in, there's obviously the maintenance, but it's also, if you're gonna buy a home for investment purposes, there's even more variability, because you don't know what kind of tenants you're gonna get. You don't know how, like, if they're gonna take care of your home. And that's a reason why if you try to get an investment loan, they usually ask for a higher down payment, because the risk even for the lender is higher. Because if you someone that lives in their home, they usually take care of the home a little better than a tenant that's just going to be for a year, right? They could go in, destroy everything, and then take off.
So it sounds like it's a difficult road. Take me back to the vision of, it seems to be something difficult. Maybe for that reason a lot of people wouldn't want to do it. But I know that you had a bigger vision when you started. Like, why would anybody want to do this in the first place? Like, what does real estate do? What does it represent?
So, and I think you touched it at the beginning when you mentioned about real estate is a good way to build wealth, right? Especially if you want to do generational wealth, because um, that's what wealthy people do. They have properties, they pass it down to their families, and think about you being able to pass down a home to your kids free and clear, right? How would that would have changed your own personal life, right? If you just didn't have to worry about paying rent, for example, or having a mortgage, just having a regular job, you'll be able to do more with your income, and that's how you start building that generational wealth. You there, and also getting a home, there's a lot of benefits to it. If from the investment side, um, it's not just the rent that you collect, from the tenants. There's equity that you build with time, and then you could use the equity to become your own lender eventually. There's a lot of tax benefits that you get when you have an investments in real estate, and that's why people hear all the time about how, like, these rich people never pay taxes, and that it is the legal way to do it, because the system, it is built for entrepreneurs, and the system is built for people that have investments and people that have real estate. So if you really want to save your taxes, you would have to look into one of those areas. And for me at that time, back in 2019, I mean, I already had a full-time job. I was, getting my master's degree, I had just gotten my master's degree, and I was looking to see what I was going to do next. I couldn't really take off and try to build a whole business and do all of that, right? But the one thing that for me at that time was an easier access was real estate. um, As the cats. But yeah, so there's different reasons as to why, but the main ones that for me personally was like I've been thinking about generational wealth, and this is before I started my family. So that's something that I do want to pass down. And I want to make sure that my future generations start off, with a head start, because I think that's the goal, right? Just like our parents
Yeah.
sacrificed a lot for us to be here, to have the opportunities um, that we have, because we were born over here, and the guidance that they were able to provide for us to to get the degree and all of that. I want to make sure that I provide something to my future generations. And then just from the business standpoint, there's a lot of tax benefits um,
Mm.
involved in there. And then it also becomes a an income revenue. It is really important. I know you mentioned this a lot of times previously, the importance of having multiple streams of income. So having multiple doors means you have multiple rentals, right? Multiple streams of income. So like even something bad happens in one property, you still have checks coming in, or you still have rents coming in from other properties. Um, Even if you have a good paying W-2 job, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be layoffs. And I think people do feel a lot of the times that it's never going to happen to me. It's never going to happen to me. I think within what happened with COVID and all the things, and up to this day, we just seen so much of like people getting laid off, and in all the industries, So it's just really important to not just rely on one source of income. So those are the main reasons why I
See,
still
see,
will
no,
say, if you're able to do real estate.
yes, I love that so much because when you think about the risk that you are taking on, it's like, okay, what's the reward? And the reward is huge, right? Like there are so many things that you can do with real estate. And I love what you were talking about, like, passing down real estate and what that can do to like a family and a generation. Como
Mm.
que I was talking to a friend today who I don't know what his deal is, but I think he might be able to be getting free rent like for the next year, and he's like that would be a blessing. Imagine how much money I could invest. Like imagine if I invested the rent money that I had on the stock market or on something else, like how that would return. And yeah, I think it's just having assets that are for the long term game. I think that's what it's about. So thank you for sharing your perspective. And Canela didn't want to interrupt here, but she wanted to have a little segment.
Hi,
She wanted a little
mamas.
microphone.
Don't
So
make me
yes.
take out my bunny. I have a bunny now.
uh, yeah, but yeah, I think it provides choices for us and for our future generation. So that's definitely something worth maybe struggling a bit for, just like having a little bit of a learning curve for. Okay, so you have several doors at this point, which means like just several properties. What was one of the scariest moments that you faced in your real estate journey? We want to hear the tea. People are curious.
So that's the thing about me. I feel like if you go like into Instagram or YouTube, people always share like, "Oh, real estate is great," and like they make it sound like so easy. Da, da, da. There's a lot of things I did not share, and I'm not trying to scare anyone, right? I'm just, this is what it is. But one of the scariest moments was one of my properties that I got. It was a multifamily with a triplex, and I knew, because I was familiar with the area, that it wasn't gonna be like Class A property, like the best tenants and things like that. Um, and I've had difficult situations sometimes with the tenants, and even though I manage it from far away, this tenant, I didn't vet them in person, right? So I had assistants, because I was in Indiana when he moved in. But then when I came to El Paso, he hadn't been paying rent, so it came down to like, we have to evict them, and there's, every state has their own laws, and in Texas there's a certain procedure that you have to do it. Thankfully, because I used to manage my properties by myself, or from far, but I decided if I want us to scale, I have to delegate. So that's why I decided to get a property manager. And thankfully, I had just hired a property manager when this situation started, rising. And this tenant was just like started sending text messages like really aggressive, like it was getting, he started calling me, certain words and like, cursing me out and things like that. And so he had to provide, the eviction notice to the tenant. And you have, someone to witness that you provided the witness, the eviction notice. And since I was in town, um, I went, but I remember when we met, to give this eviction notice, he stopped me and then he's like, "Stay in your vehicle," because he's like, Magali, I've been getting more um, offensive and violent text messages, and then he's just like, "Stay in your vehicle." And then with the person that I was with at that time, he know how to he had a license to carry a gun, so he had a gun. And he asked him straight up, "You have a gun, right, sir?" And I was like, what is happening? And then my property manager wore glasses. He takes them off, puts in the back of his car, and then he said, "Just in case I get punched or something, I don't want glass in my, to cut me." And I was like, what? So I mean, I was like, the Lord knows why I hired the property manager at that time, right? Because like, what if I would have get punched? Um, and it could have been a little bit more. So, but I was just so thankful that I had not only a property manager, but a property manager that like knew the risk and he was still willing to do his job, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, and I remember I was so nervous and we were just looking and he knocked, the guy opened, got the thing and closed the door. There was no
yeah.
interactions, nothing. And I know, because I was like, I was praying. I was like, I don't want nobody to get shot today. I don't want, this and stuff. And he ended up leaving. Well, we went through the eviction process and basically, yeah, they granted us the eviction and he ended up leaving. Obviously left the place a mess, and yeah, I lost some money and stuff like that. But I was just really happy that, nothing bad happened to my property manager or me or anything. But
Girl,
it was when I
no, that's
tell you,
perfect.
my first year in this business was not smooth, um, for a lot of different reasons. But hey, I survived.
Yeah. Oh my god, that is crazy. Um, I can't imagine that. Like, I think you at that point you were definitely like, "What am I doing? Like, why did I even start?" I feel like this podcast episode is just like a very informative podcast. Like it's like all the positives, and we're gonna throw all the positives and all the negatives. O sea, como que just a very well informed decision.
Keeping it real,
Um,
because I think that's really
yeah.
important. Keeping it real.
See. And I think, as you mentioned, this happened because of the area, most likely, that you bought it in. And I think it has to do with our strategy, right? Same here. I didn't decide to get a property that I actually could qualify for. I bought a house that was way lower because in my head, I was like, I need to be able to afford this mortgage plus rent. Below a 33% ratio of like my living expenses, right? So then I was
Yeah.
like, no. So I went to an area that's perhaps not the best, not like, the traditional best area in the city, but I did it for those reasons. And there's risk that comes with that, but that was
Mhm.
part of my strategy. So now that you shared one of your scariest moments, I want to also, I think this podcast again is just like pro con, good bad, good bad. Let's share. Okay, let's flip the script. Okay, what was a moment where you felt so proud and validated for like everything that entails real estate?
Um, It's been multiple. So like one of the things, for just going back to that same property, I knew what I was getting myself into, but I also thought, I started noticing this trend, especially in a lot of cities, right? But especially in El Paso, which was really sad to see, gentrification. Like we're starting to see a lot of rents going up and think people not being able to afford it, and then or also they just don't qualify because they don't have their income is not like a stable W-2, right? They have work multiple jobs, they're trying to go to school and do all of this. So one of my ideas was like, I don't want to become like a slumlord, right? Like I want to be able to provide some sort of attainable housing to people in a livable condition and at a reasonable rate. So I was willing to give opportunities to tenants that might have gotten rejected somewhere else, right? I still try my best to vet them, background check, credit report and do all of that. But like a lot of the times, like they had to get a co-signer or, there were people that had a gap in their, in the work history, just like things like they were veterans. I've been a landlord for veterans that have been struggling, and I'm like, I respect that too. I think everyone should thank them for the service. So um, I just wanted to be able to provide opportunities for those that you know might not have the opportunity. And overall, I did have good tenants. Like that specific property, I ended up selling it not too long ago. But I had a tenant from like day one till then, and like so they're I will consider that a win. And like it feels good to know that they have a place to live, that have proper AC
Yeah.
conditions. Like, if something goes wrong, I would fix it. And because of that area, there were properties around that area where the it looked like the people that owned those properties, they were really in it for the money, because you could tell that they were not taking care of their building, or just maintaining landscaping and all of that. And it got to a point where like neighbors, every time my property had like a for rent sign, neighbors would come and they would ask me like, hey, well, me or whoever was showing the property, they were really interested. Like the interest was like nonstop. So it was always renting. But the feedback was because they told me, we see that they take care of this. And that just kind of
Wow.
made me like really happy, right? Because I found a way to, yes, I was investing, I was making money, but I also find a way to kind of give back to the community,
Yeah.
and give them opportunities, right, to be able to
Wow.
have a livable place. And then I noticed that it was being recognized, like people started to notice, and like,
Yeah.
hey, we noticed like there's something happens, and you have the HVAC guy here, and then you come and have people cleaning, and like the neighbors apparently have been talking about like, oh yeah, she's great, or whoever, and it just like made me feel real good, because and it kind of cancels all those like negative interactions, that big scary moment, because at the end of the day, that was also part of my strategy. Like I wasn't in it to like try to make money super fast. I was also, because I'm investing in my hometown. You know what I mean? And I do
Yeah.
dearly appreciate my hometown and just everything that it gave me to me in the position that I was in. And so that moment, that when I heard like the neighbors, they were always trying to come in, and they're like, I'm sorry, I already got an application, or I'm sorry, this and that,
Wow.
it just felt really good. And it felt validated that the strategy that I was, that I kind of was trying to do was working. Yeah, I have to go through the really hard times, but like the overall big
Wow.
picture as to how I was trying to invest, it was
See.
making sense.
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing. And I think that's unfortunately a risk that you run when you are serving maybe a community that's maybe underserved. Like it just it's something that happens, but you were willing to take that risk because I think at the end of the day, you wanted to provide a good living experience for people where they had a good landlord, where they don't get that. Like if their AC goes out, pues a ver cuando lo arreglan, like, and so it's their living situation. Obviously, that's gonna affect their whole life, and it's so amazing that you were able to have a positive impact in a business that is meant to make money. I don't think there's anything wrong with the money piece, but just like I think what makes it wrong is when you start neglecting all the other sides of the experience and the business, right? It's like I don't give a shit about anything else as long as it's making me money. I think personally, I think that's where it's wrong. But for you to be able to provide that experience is amazing. So I'm glad that it's been a gratifying journey. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and experiences. As we get ready to wrap up, I have two questions for you. Este, just like more rapid fire. So, one thing that you wish you would have known before having all these properties.
um just one thing. The entry to getting real estate is not as hard as you think it is.
Okay, okay, amazing. Another rapid fire. What do you expect to be the reward for this? And yeah,
Generational wealth.
another question that's kind of similar. Why do you do this?
Well, obviously for generational wealth, but I also still do believe that me being the owner of properties in a community where I start seeing how people are starting to take advantage of, um,
Yeah.
that's something that I'm like, okay, if I could do a little bit of part, right, even if it's by by having a few houses here and there that I could help and impact and help someone out, like that's also why I do this.
Yeah, amazing. So I lied. I have two more.
Okay.
So how did you push through when self-doubt showed up?
And like with real estate and with everything and life and just in general, my faith in God, to be honest. Like I mentioned, like I was praying. I was like, please Lord, don't let me get
Lord.
shocked today. But
Esa es la que yo
in,
quiero.
in a serious note, I think it's just like the experiences that I've gone through real estate. Yeah, they could be difficult, but there's just a lot of in different areas of your life. Life is hard. Like life be lifing sometimes. Um, but I do believe that my faith has definitely given the confidence and has helped me to just kind of move forward and overcome a bunch of obstacles and different situations.
Amazing. And then last question, tips for balancing your life as you're navigating also real estate and like a full-time job and many other responsibilities, mom, wife.
um I think the word balance is kind of interesting because I think people automatically believe that that means that your work and your personal life would always be like literally balanced out. But more realistically, there are going to be phases. Like sometimes you're going to have to. You might have an important project or your business needs a little bit more of your time to be successful. So there's going to be some times where you're going to have to spend more energy and more time in there, which means other areas of your life are going to have to give in, right? There was a point where I thought that you could have it all, which you can, but um, at different times. It's like there's all of this quote about you could afford anything, but not everything. Doesn't like not at the same time. So
Yeah.
if you once you realize, and you have to be okay with that, because when the time where I was trying to do it all, I didn't realize like how my health was being affected. Right, I wasn't eating right, I
See, you
wasn't
still have to pay
working
it with
out right.
something.
Yeah, I wasn't sleeping, and then eventually it will start getting with all the areas of your life start getting affected by that. But
See.
once you realize, like, hey, right now and at this time, I really have to focus. I have to work late for whatever this project, and I just have to do it. Okay, I'm gonna have to put this on the side, but
Yeah.
prioritizing things has definitely helped me. My number one thing right now, especially now that I'm a wife and I'm a mother, is like my health and my family will always come first, and then everything else I'll just prioritize, after that,
Yeah.
and that has worked out pretty well so far.
Beautiful. Magali, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your knowledge. You have a vast life wisdom and knowledge that you can share. So I know that this is not the last time we will have a conversation. I know there's so many pieces that we can expand on, but this is just to spark curiosity in people and you and like and in the conversation. So where can people connect with you? Where can people find you if they have more questions or if they're curious in something specific?
So I know we discussed this before, but like I just realized that it's really important to share your testimony. um like when it comes to like my faith, I've gone through a bunch of different things in life. I even like with fitness, I've like gained weight, lost weight. Financially, I've been able to figure out how to invest and get into real estate and just a different area. So I've decided that I do want to go ahead and start sharing more about that. And there, I have an Instagram page called Savage Aligned. Um, so I'm gonna start sharing a little bit more about myself on there. And I know you know this, but for those people that don't know, I live in Hawaii, so I have a house in Hawaii. You know what I mean? And like just to think the fact like that little girl from El Paso has a house in Hawaii and with her family. Um, it's just like wow, it's just like I get to wake up,
Beautiful.
we go get bananas from my banana tree and the tangerine, and you know what I mean, and it's just like seeing my baby growing up, eating fresh fruit, and it's just been such a blessing. So yeah, so I'm gonna start sharing a little bit more about that. Just in general about, I just think like wellness is just so many areas, right? Your mind, your body, money, your soul, your faith. So I'll just start sharing a little bit more, about my life and maybe like things that I've learned throughout, and just kind of share my testimony. And if people have questions or they want to reach out, they could do it through there.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think, yeah, I think if you have any questions, if this sparked anything in you, please leave a comment down below if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, or you can reach out to us directly. Savage Aligned, and soy Gina Moreno. Magali, thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy. Te mando mucho amor. So happy to hear your testimony of a dream life. Y thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Gina.